Hey, shalom everyone. Here we are. Shalom. Landa, Chris, Shaun, Yanasi. Glad to see you back, Yanasi. Gary, Brenda, Michael, Betty, servant of Hashem, Julie. And yes, we will be dedicating tonight's shi'ur to a refuah shelema for Brenda Bat Sarah, Ken Ratzon ki yihyeh la, refuah shelema b'zchut Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay? And I was thinking maybe for the opening prayer tonight we could do a psalm, but we'll do one of the psalms. I want to start teaching you the psalms for Friday night service. Well, for welcoming of Friday night service, the Kabbalat Shabbat, welcoming of the Sabbath. Not to be confused, it's not Kabbalah, okay? Nothing to do with Kabbalah, okay? Kabbalat Shabbat, it comes from the Mishnah Hebrew word kibel, which is to welcome or invite, right? So a Kabbalah, again, sounds the same but different meaning, is a welcoming in Hebrew, a welcoming, right? So Kabbalat becomes welcoming of Shabbat. So these are from the Psalms that we say when we're, it's supposed to be when we're getting ready for Shabbat, yeah? So, all right, so this one, let's see. There we go, okay. This is, okay, Psalm 29. You can see they're kind of small. Let me get in a little bit closer there. And this will be our opening prayer tonight. I'll teach you the way that I learned to sing this. Okay. Hey, Shalom Annie and Debs and Mentat Assassin. Great. Glad you guys are all here. All right, so. And so this is from an old conservative Sidur back when they were conservative. Right? All right, I kind of feel good about having it from that time. Mizmor LeDavid. And in ancient times, we would have called this psalm not Psalm 29, we would have called it Havul Adonai. Right? So that's the first few words that are significant in the psalm, and so that would be the name of the psalm. Just like Psalm 22 was called Eli Eli Lama Azavtani, right? Or in the Jewish Aramaic, you're probably more familiar, Eloi Eloi Lema Shabachtani, right? So when Yeshua's on that execution stake, he's not showing despair, he's not showing, why did you leave me, God? The writers are telling us that's the psalm that was said. Okay, so here we go. That one was called Eli Eli Lama Azavtani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Right. So when they say he said that, he's not saying those little words. He's saying he said that entire psalm, right? Which adds a lot to it. And all these weird sermons about because God left him in that moment and he went to hell. And okay. We just need to be familiar with the social milieu of Judaism and how Judaism quotes scripture back then before there's chapter and verse. Okay? All right. Yes, that's right. Debs, you're in our time zone almost. Fantastic. Прекрасно. Very glad to have you here live, Debs. Okay. Havul Adonai b'nei Elim. Havul Adonai kavod va'oz. Havul Adonai kevod shemo, Hishtachavul Adonai behadat kodesh. Kol Adonai al hamayim, El hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar. Kol Adonai shaveh arazim, V'yeshaber Adonai et arzei halvanon. Sorry, they're there. The cedars of Lebanon. Vayarkidem kemo egel, Lebanon Yisirion, kemo ven remim. Kol Adonai chotzef lahavot esh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yechol el ayalot. ויחסוב ירחות, ובהחולו כולו אומר כבוד. אדוני למבול ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. And this is one of the few psalms you can actually say Amen. to when the psalm is done, because it has a positive benediction. It says, Adonai lama bul yashav, Adonai, he sat enthroned during the great deluge. Vayeshev Adonai melech haolam, and Adonai has sat enthroned as the king from ancient times, like meaning infinity. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai strength will give to his people. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom, Adonai will bless his people with peace. And by the way, I didn't say the ayans when I was singing it because it's just kind of, didn't learn it that way. So halfway through, I kind of regretted it because I've been trying to say the ayans for you guys. But anyway, in case you're wondering why it was amo instead of amo, that's what's going on. Okay, let's see. Uve. Let me see what that one is. Uve hecholo. Oops, lost my yarmulke. Yeah. Uve hecholo. Yeah, it's cholo. Cholo. Good question there, Debs. Thank you for calling out on that. Hey, Shalom Inc. Okay, nice question. Any other questions? Yeah, kulo. Kulo, that's right. Kulo, it's like everybody. Like just right here. Yeah. Like look, Ink just wrote kulo, but with the suffix on it. So hello to kulam, to everybody. Okay, great. So that's Psalm 29. If you want to listen to that, practice that, and maybe do that with your family. Friday for Kabbalat Shabbat before the Sabbath starts. Do that and enjoy. Okay, we're still in the Koran Tanakh because the comic book, the graphic novel, there's really nothing special lately. There'll be just like one page full of text and like one little picture of Moshe going, So I think it's better to have the nice print then. You know, the nice Hebrew, right? Looking beautiful, big crisp letters. And sometimes, you know, the graphic novel has mistakes, right? We've caught some mistakes in there every once in a while. So, okay, great. By the way, if there are any other questions before, I just assumed it was banter. I didn't really read through everything at the beginning. So if you asked a question and I ignored, then please let me know. It wasn't intentional, okay? So we are in Exodus chapter 23 tonight. Exciting, all the progress you guys are making. Think, when you're done with our series on Exodus, you can say you honestly read through the entire Hebrew text of Exodus. Isn't that cool? And it does something for your neshama. It does something for your spirit, your soul. Okay. Verse 16. 23, verse 16. Here we are. Okay. Let me just move the Siddur over. And if you're in the Philippines and you want the Siddur, contact me about it. I have quite a few of these. I was kind of storing them up thinking that, you know, maybe for alcohol we could have a whole bunch of Siddurs. Okay, 20. I mean, hard copy ones. Okay. You know, I need to, here. The Siddur will help to balance that out. There. I think it'll focus better if it's flat. Yay. Okay, just up here. Julie says, do women sing the Psalms as well as the men? Yes. Yes, women sing also. Nice. Oh, okay. There are some sects where the women don't sing. Yeah, but the norm is to sing. Yeah, women sing. In fact, women more traditionally are the ones who are primarily in the Psalms, right? Since the men are obligated to say certain prayers, and the women aren't obligated to say those because of needing to tend to children in the home and that kind of stuff. A lot of times, it will be the women who are doing the weekly Psalms, right, during the week, all of the Psalms every week, or on the monthly cycle, right, like that, which I shared actually over in our Hebrew literacy chat. I shared the a place where you can find out what the Psalms for the week are, what day is each Psalm, or if you want to do the monthly cycle. So yeah, yep, Psalms are really a woman's thing. Men can do it too, right? But it's more like men can also do the Psalms. You see? So Psalms, really, it's women, it's their responsibility. They will oftentimes take up the mantle of praying through the Psalms. Although, you know, retired men with more hand on their hands, they'll do it also. This was, for example, in the War for Independence in Israel in 1948, when Jerusalem was besieged and surrounded by the British Arab League. It's basically like an army that was trained by Britain and armed by Britain and had British officers in it, but also Jordan was technically the one in charge. Very superior weapons to what we had. and the Israeli defenders were fighting with like World War I Turkish rifles, single bolt action, fire once, reload, and the Arabs had like full auto, and they were just not showing restraint. So in that battle, in the series of battles when Jerusalem was besieged, the head of the Israeli forces in Jerusalem, he paid the religious guys, the very religious guys, the yeshiva bulkers and stuff. Part of it was for the morale, right, to keep them busy, but also, he was a secular guy, but he's like, who knows, maybe it'll help. He paid them to recite the Psalms. So every day they would go through all of the Psalms numerous times while this fierce battle was going on, just really, really outnumbered in a terrible situation, with inferior numbers, inferior firepower, and people were like, like the ration was like, an egg a day or something like this, because Jerusalem had been cut off from the Israeli forces in Tel Aviv. So, yeah. Okay. So here we go. Let's get to it. Verse 16. Vehag haqatsiyr b'kurei ma'asecha asher tizra b'sadeh. Okay. Vehag. Now, chag. Chag is a real cool word. If you don't know this word, if you've ever had any Muslim friend or you know anything about Islam, there's a free way to remember this word. I got a freebie for you, okay? That's what I call the words that you can memorize without trying, like practically not trying. They're freebies, right? Like for example, in many languages, they have the word computer, right? So that's a freebie in many languages that you might, not in Hebrew, it's not called that in Hebrew, but in many languages it's called computer. So, gee, I wonder what that means. So the freebies are words where you can associate it with something else, there's a similar word. So in Arabic, they have hajj. Right? And if you think about it, the gimel, what happens if you make a soft G sound? Like if you spelled the word Jamil, it's spelled with a G, right? And here in the Philippines, they even spell Jerry sometimes with a G. There's like a Jerry's Grill, but it's spelled with a G instead of a J. So strange. So, but the G can do that in English, right? It can be a G or a J. So in Arabic, it was a J. And so like Jamil or, so Hajj. So Hajj, for the Arabic language, this is in Islam, the teaching that once in their lifetime, no matter where they live, a Muslim must go to Mecca. That's their holy city, right? They have to go to their holy city and do their little holy stuff, right? So that's called Hajj. So if you know that already, then this word should be easy for you, Chag. Chag. So Chag, it's from a root, chug. Some say chagag, but chug more likely, which means to go around in a circle. So you can really see how this is starting to relate to Hajj, right? They go around the rock, right? They walk around that rock. And so if you know that, there's a freebie for you. So this is a holiday or a feast day, but it's got the implication, it's got the feeling in Hebrew of a foot festival, right? Because the Chagim, the three Chagim in Hebrew, these are the three festivals when we're supposed to go up to Jerusalem, right? They also have another name that we'll talk about too, but for now, Chag, because that's a freebie. You got a freebie, okay? Yeah, that's right. Deb says, oh, Haji Men. Is that like Ho Chi Men? I don't know. Ho Chi Minh? All right. Any questions? Are we good? We're good, okay. So now the Chag of, which Chag? Haqatsiyr. Haqatsiyr. So a little bit strange. This isn't how we're used to calling this holiday. Usually we call it Shavuot, right? Which is weeks, right? But this is another name for it. Katsir, it's reaping, it means. So like the holiday of the reaping, right? Or harvesting, right? The reaping. So when you count the Omer, what we're doing when we count the Omer, the 49 days leading up to day 50, which is why it's called Pentecost, from Greek Pentekoste, right, which means 50, right? So Greek-speaking Jews would call it Pentecost, and that's why in many Christian denominations they celebrate Pentecost. When really, it's interesting, in the Hebrew we call it 49, right? It's weeks, but it's the holiday when every day you would bring forth like a bounty, right? You would have like a sheath of your harvest wrapped up, and that's an Omer. Now today we just count the Omer, right? And we recognize Hashem for it, right? And for those of us who believe in Messiah, it's interesting, on the 40th day, the Mem of the Omer, that's when Yeshua actually resurrected. I mean, not resurrected, pardon me, when he ascended sign language, when he Allah'd up into the heavens. Okay, so vehag haqatsiyr, so the festival of the harvest, bikurei ma'asecha. So this is from the word bikurim, which means first fruits, which interestingly enough is when he resurrected. He resurrected on first fruits. So bikurim, we drop the mem, and what happens? That makes it of. So bikurei, first fruits of ma'asecha. So even if you didn't know this word, you might be able to figure it out by recognizing the root. The root is asa, ayin, sin, hey, and the hey here it's gone away because it's the plural. So this was ma'asim. So asa is to do or to make. Remember, to make or to do. And this is a noun, which is something that you do, right? Like the result of your work. Or it can also be your works. Like the ma'aseh yadecha. We see this a lot in the Tanakh. The works of your hand, or your handiwork. So-called your handiwork. So this is the ma'asim, drop the mem, the ma'asim of cha, of you. So your works, the first fruits of your works. Asher, which, tizra, you, zerad. Now we know this word already, zara, right? Remember we had zera. Zera, remember here's the sign, zera, it means seeds. Zera, well the sign is seeds, but the word is seed, singular, okay? So this is a verb from that. So even if you didn't know this word, because you know the noun from your word of the day, you should be able to figure it out. We see the tav at the beginning. That's our pattern for this is probably you, right? So remember, it could be you talking to a man, or it could be she about a woman, okay? So tizra, asher tizra, which you sowed, or which you will sow, ba sadeh. Beit is in, is the, sadeh is field. And it doesn't have to mean field. Usually we learn the gloss that way. It means any open space where people don't live. So it could even be a desert, right? It could be some kind of ruins, right? It could be a big canyon that nobody wants to live down in there, right? Or a big mountain. Not a big mountain, no. But it's usually flat and open, right? So we say field because usually we're talking about a field, but it doesn't have to be a field. So basadeh, I'll say the field. Vehag, and the holiday. So vehag. Ha'asif betzet hashanah. Okay. And the festival of ha'asif, of the ingathering. Okay. Asaf means to gather, right? So the festival of ingathering, this is Sukkot. Sukkot is the other name we know this one by. Okay. So it's another harvest, right? We have 3 harvests in the calendar cycle in ancient Israel. But Tzeit, so Tzeit is from the verb yatsa, which is to go out. The yod disappeared, like it often does if a word starts with it. And, Deb says we call it the pak haji. Pak equals sir in English. Oh, right. Right. Yeah, interesting. Pak haji. Sir Hajj. That's interesting. So, tzeit is a going out of. So, be, in the tzeit, going out of, or when. Be can mean when, goes out, and what's happening here, this is an infinitive. When you put beit in front of an infinitive, it usually means when, for it to make sense in English, okay? I mean, technically it's in going out of, but in English we would say when goes out, hashanah. What's hashanah? The shana. Shana, we've had this in our Hebrew word of the day, right? Shana. Shana is year, right? That's just kind of think like the earth going around the sun, year. Shana, okay? So the shana, the year. So the going out of the year, so this is the high holy day season that's coming up. We're in the month of Elul now, and next month will be Rosh Hashanah, right? So the month is going out now. Be'os becha. So this is another infinitive, right? From asaf. Asaf meaning gather. So remember what I said, if you put a beit in front of an infinitive, when gathering of cha, of you. So that's literally what it's saying, is in gathering of you, or when gathering of you. So when you gather, we don't translate, ma'asecha, your labors, the result of your labor, your works, min, from the sadeh, from the field. Okay? Be'os becha et ma'asecha min hasadeh. Okay? Oh, interesting, Yanasi. So basically, in case you're wondering, guys, there's Indonesian and Malaysian languages being discussed now. And they're in the same family of language. So Yanasi saying Pak in Malay is a title we call an elderly man. So that's cool to see how the cognate has a slightly different meaning in another language. This happens a lot with Hebrew and Aramaic. You'll get like a slightly different meaning going from, or into Arabic even. Sometimes they have the same word, but it has a different meaning. Okay. One of my favorites is in Tagalog, anak is a child, but in Hebrew it's a giant. Right? So, all right, verse 17. Shalosh pe'amim bashana. Shalosh, 3. Pe'amim, times. Remember, pa'am is a stride. Or it's a foot, usually of like a piece of furniture or something. We don't really usually refer to, I'm not sure if we ever refer to human feet as pa'am. If it's a human's pa'am, it's usually the stride. Oh, poetically, in the Psalms, it can be legs. But very rare. Maybe only one Psalm. But anyway, so, or it can mean like time, like how many times, right? And it's related to pa'amon, which is a bell. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe like ringing the time for the bell or something. So pe'amim is time. So shalosh, 3, pe'amim times. Ba, be, in, the shana, year. In the year. Brendan says, why is Rosh Hashanah the beginning of the new year, not the month of Aviv? Yeah, we have, it's a good question. So Rosh Hashanah is like the secular new year, right? And like of the nation, right? And in Aviv, i.e. Nisan, that is the religious new year. That's like our religious birth, right? Our festival of freedom occurs at that time of the year, right? So being freed from Israel, being freed from Egypt, from Mitzrayim, being freed from our sins, that's the spiritual new year, which is kind of silly because, I mean, it's silly to frame it that way, I know, but this is kind of the traditional way of explaining it. And then Rosh Hashanah, this is the beginning of the civil new year, meaning all of Israel, not meaning the actual state today of Israel, but all of spiritual Israel, our civil new year, because this is the time in which our fates for the next year are sealed. At least that's the rabbinical teaching, the rabbinical belief. That, okay, it's not sealed on Pesach, but it is sealed on Rosh Hashanah. There's all kinds of New Years. There's a New Year for trees, there's a New Year for animals, but these are the two biggies, yeah? Good question. Hey, shalom, Frank in Thailand. Yofi. Great. Okay, so nice questions. I just had this chemistry teacher in high school, Mr. Plyler. He only had one arm. He had like a nub, and he never told anybody what happened. Like, people thought it was in Vietnam, he lost his arm or whatever. But anyway, and he would like always come in, if a student was like sleeping in chemistry, he'd come over and like lean his nub on them until they woke up and they'd be freaked out. But he used to always say, like, if you asked a good question, he'd be like, good question. And then he'd say, good answer. So it comes to mind every once in a while when I feel the answer was decent. Okay. Yira'eh kol zechurecha el panei ha'adon Adonai. Yira'eh. Kind of hard to pick apart, but let's look. Maybe some of you are recognizing the pattern already. The verb, easy peasy, ra'ah. We know this. Ra'ah, to see. Not ra'ah, right? But ra'ah, to see, right? Not that one, right, Landa? So ra'ah is to see. The yod tells us he is doing it, right? So it's a he doing the seeing. But then we have this weird vowel here. It's a tsere. And so what that's telling me is that really in ancient times, this was yin with a noon. Yin ra'eh. And that noon, he tries to assimilate, like our illegal example, tries to go into the resh, but it gets rejected. Resh cannot double. You cannot put a dagesh in there, okay? So it spits it out, and then what we would have had here is a single dot, a chirik. It lengthens to the double dot, okay? Of course, that's not really exactly what's happening with the dots lengthening, but it's a nice visual way to remember it. For those of you who are auditory learners, just think when you hear yay at the beginning instead of ye, then that's making it passive. All that was to explain that it's passive. It's the quote-unquote, in Jewish dikduk, it's called the niphal binyan, right? Or the passive verbal stem. So, yera'eh. So, shalosh pe'amim b'shana, 3 times in the year, yera'eh, literally, shall be seen. Okay, but this is how we say shall appear. Okay, shall be seen. Who? Kol, all of zechurecha, all of your males, right? Males. And we've talked about this before because a couple months ago I had this is kind of a crazy disagreement with someone who knows Hebrew okay, but they were so adamant that, well, can't that mean also women? Like if you no, male never means women. Never, 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 never. Just because you want it to, it doesn't ever mean women. Okay, so anashim, men in the plural, that can include women. That can mean people, right? In context, right? And like banim, which is children, that can mean sons in context, or it can mean just children, like both sexes, right? But male never means female in biblical Hebrew. Okay, so just so you can take it to the bank, never does. Okay, so you can't kind of. What happens is sometimes when you put a word in the plural, it's also inclusive, right? So it's males and females. So hence banim, it's children. Hence anashim are people, right? But when you put this in the plural, it means like maleness, like mankind, something like that. You know, like the concept of being male, right? Something like that. Hey, shalom, Jessica. Hey, glad you can, not glad that you're sick, but glad that you can join us today live. That's nice. By the way, we don't have Tet here to remind everybody to like, so how about the other admin? Other admin, remind people to click the like, huh? All right. So, kol zechurecha, all of your males, or each of your males, yerae, will appear, shall appear. El, unto, panei. Panei is from panim, which we have this word, it means face, right? Right? I can't do the sign language for face without thinking about high school. You know, facial de-scrub. You remember that? For the Americans. So, panim, face. It just happens to exist in the plural in Hebrew. And then you drop the mem. Panei is face of. Face of. So, el, unto, panei, face of, which we usually translate into English as the presence of ha'adon, the master, the Lord, literally the Lord. We don't see this title offered up so often to God. Usually we say Adonai, right? Which is my lords in the plural. But this is Ha'adon, the Lord. And then we have this little symbol here to show us to pause. And then who's the Lord? Adonai. You'll notice there are no vowels here. So this really was learned as Yod-He, Waw-He. When you don't see the vowels on it at all, pointing it as Adonai, even though we still say Adonai out of respect, this means that was learned as the tetragrammaton. So they'd be singing and then they would make note and they would just say Adonai, even though they know it's Yod-He, Waw-He. It really is the name. Hey, shalom, Chris. I think he was here before, right? I think maybe saying he has to go because shalom, yeah? Yeah, shalom, achi. All right. Verse Yod Chet. This is 18. Make sure to come on over with the questions. I do not mind. It's nice to have you guys participating. Okay? So, all right. Any comments or questions? Maybe I'll get a drink real quick. Let's see. Drink. And for our... Oops, that's... My hotkeys are messed up. All right. You just have to see a black screen for a second. There we go. There's Yanasi. Cracking the whip. Nice. You got the likes up close to the concurrent viewers. Well done. All right. Let's see. 18. Okay. Lo tizbach al chametz dam zivchi. Lo, not. Tizbach. So you guys probably know this verb. If you don't, you can figure it out. Probably based on another word. So if you know mizbeach, which was one of our Hebrew words of the day, mizbeach, a mizbeach is an altar. And look, it's got the same root as this verb. So what do you do on an altar? You sacrifice. So the tav is you. So tizbach. So lo tizbach. You shall not sacrifice. Al, with. This can mean on, with, together. So with chametz. Chametz is like dough. It means something that has a fermenting agent in it. Okay? So like yeast, dough, something like that. Okay? So with a fermenting agent. Dam, blood of. See, the makef here tells me it's of. The blood of zivchi. So look, the same root. Zivchi, can you see? Tizbach, zebucha, zebucha. All right? So a zevach is a sacrifice. And then the yod at the end tells you it's mine. So zivchi is my sacrifice. So lo tizbach al chametz dam zivchi. You shall not sacrifice with chametz the blood of my sacrifice. By the way, often I'll just say chametz because this is a Jewish English word already, right? So chametz, that's a freebie. So what does chametz mean? It means chametz. So that should be easy enough, right? Brenda's having Devo vibes. Love the 80s references. All right. How are we on time? All right, we're doing good. We got about 15 minutes left. Great, great, great. V'lo yalin chelev chagi ad boker. Velo, and not yalin. So yalin, I don't know if you'll know this word or not, if this will help, but if any of you have studied Israeli Hebrew, modern Hebrew, a malon is a hotel, okay? But the root is lean. And we have a yod and a vav. They oftentimes, some say loon, right? But they'll swap places. It's a hollow verb, right? Lamed yod noon or lamed vav noon. And it means to sojourn. It means to spend the night. To sojourn the night, I wanted to say. To spend the night. So you can see why malon later came to mean a hotel, right? Or in the Tanakh, this is like a lodging place, right? Okay. Which is what a hotel is. So, velo yalin. So the yod tells us he or it. And it shall not stay overnight. Okay. What's not going to stay overnight? Chayliv chagi. The chayliv, the fat of chagi. Of the chag, or chaj, think of chaj. The chag of me, my chag, my festival. Ad, we've had the ad until boker. You know this from those of you in the States. Boker tov. Good morning. Julie says, can I just think leaven when I see chametz? Yeah, leaven's fine. Go ahead. I'm just saying those of you who are used to like the synagogue context or, you're used to hearing chametz already, right? So it's like it's a Jewish English loan word from Hebrew. So you can totally say leaven. Leaven is what it means. Okay? Good. A little chametz. Chametz is the whole lump. Okay? All right. Verse Yod Tet, that's 19. And 2 more verses to go, and we are done with tonight's allotment. Well, we might go further. We'll see. Let's see how time. All right. Reshit bikurei admatacha. Reshit is a beginning, or first, or, and you might not have known this. Those of you who know that Reshit means beginning or first, like in the name of the first book of the Bible, the first word is Bereshit, which means in a beginning. By the way, if you haven't seen my book on that, I thought that was a kind of fun discovery, right? So that's one of the few things I don't have to credit another scholar with. So the grammar is very clearly in a beginning, bereshit. It's not in the beginning, it's in a beginning. That's what it says. If it was in the beginning, it would say either bareshit, or as Rashi puts it, it really should say, was it barishonah, right? That's what would be expected for in the beginning, right? Or ba reshit, but it doesn't, it says bereshit. And what's interesting, one of the points I make in my book in the bottom is also the Gospel of John in the Greek also says, in Greek it says, in a beginning. It's amazing. And just, a few sentences later, he uses the word te, he uses it. But the first verse matches, which shows that John understood Genesis in Hebrew perfectly well, so he also translated it in a beginning. But it's so ingrained in people's traditions to say in the beginning that it always comes across as in the beginning. So like my very first page in my book, after the forward and all that stuff on Genesis, so I've got the Hebrew and I have my translation, right? But it's like this much Hebrew translation, there's like a whole big comment all in that first word, Right, not available on Amazon anymore. That's right. Yeah, I need to get that fixed. Because something happened. Amazon broke the. Someone can look. It had all 5 stars, and then someone gave me a 1 star. Like, oh, what happened? So Amazon broke the Hebrew somehow, and it wasn't working for people, or maybe it's just on that guy's device. I don't know. But there's no way that you can, that I have ever found, that I can respond to a reviewer, like to send them a private message or to offer a refund or something. And so I was like kind of really disturbed that he paid for this and he can't use it, right? So I took it down. It's down for now. Yeah. So, but I'm improving it, And I also have Exodus and Leviticus. I'm also improving them as we go through them. So hopefully soon we'll do like a nice hard copy. It really was intended to be hard copy, right? And I think it'll be good for you guys, because you're going through really hardcore the Hebrew. The way I did my book, I have the Hebrew on one side, and I have the English, and I try to line it up pretty good, right? So that you can tell, and I use Hebrew numerals in the English. So that also makes it easier. When you see the Hebrew numeral in the verse, you see the Hebrew numeral in the English, and then it's English, right? So you can match it up pretty easily. Your eyes can follow, and I have little notes on why to translate and little tricky, hard parts about translating why to go this way and stuff like that. So I really had people in mind who were kind of at an advanced or intermediate Hebrew level, right, when I was writing that, as well as like pastors and rabbis. I tried to make it so that it would be something that they could quickly put together a drosh, right? They're on a certain Torah portion. They can look at the notes, because on the bottom of each page, I also include the references there. You don't have to go to the bibliography. So you can just kind of lift it, Hopefully they'd say where they got it, but, they don't have to. So they can, it's Rashi or Ibn Ezra or whatever. They can take it, bloop, there it is, throw it in the sermon. So, okay. Sorry. I'm pitching a book that you can't buy. So, Deb says, we need to see it. Yeah. We are a bit ahead. Let me just see something. I'm curious. Let me see if I have it down here. If you could show you that part about Genesis. Let's see. I'm not sure if I have it here, if it's just on the... Let's see. No, sorry. All I have is a Revelation look again, a book I'm working on. But, sorry. I don't have it here. But I know where I could get it. I do have it over in Telegram saved somewhere. But I don't want to waste your time. When we finish the Exodus, maybe I'll show you. Okay. Okay. So, reshit can also mean the choicest, like the best of something. So, reshit... Oh, and it also can mean a lot of meanings. Reshit, in context, can also mean like when you have a first fruit, but you can't carry it all the way to the temple. You can make a jam or something out of it, or you can conserve it somehow, right? Like pickle it or something like that. That's also a reshit. So it can be the choicest of what you have. It can be the first of the thing, right? A first of a thing, or it can be like meaning like processed first fruit, something like that. Okay. So reshit. So whatever this word is, of bikurei, of the first fruits of admatacha. So this is adama. Adama, we should know that's ground. And you should remember, because this is where Adam comes from. He's called Adam because he's from Adama, right? So just kind of proof that God was speaking Hebrew. He named him Adam because he's from Adama, right? So sometimes people wonder, like, oh, God speaks anything. He speaks Hebrew. He created with Hebrew. Even there's little plays on words that work in Hebrew and they don't work in other languages. So the Adama of Cha, of you. So the reshit b'chorei adma techa. So I'm going to go with choicest, the best of the first fruits of your ground, your land. Tavi. So Tavi. Yanasi says, Rob, do you have your Leviticus book also? I have, but I never published it. I have it. And it's just my translation with my notes. I didn't take the time yet to put the Hebrew in and make it parallel. I just kind of got the wind knocked out of me because the Genesis book didn't do that well. And I don't know. I don't know if Amazon does shadow banning. Like, it was even hard to find sometimes on Amazon. Like sometimes I would literally search for Genesis look again, right? The name of the book, and it'd be like on the second page, like buried. Like, that's the exact name of the book. What's going on? So after I think I sold 14 copies, I was like, maybe people don't really want this book. And so I just kind of had the steam knocked out of me. So I didn't edit Leviticus or Exodus. But recently, as we've been going on the triennial, I've been adding more meat to those. So I think I make it a nice long project. So, yeah. So, okay. If there's enough interest, I'll go ahead and put the Hebrew in and stuff, and we can maybe do something about that. So this is from ba, which is to come or to arrive. Notice the yod is jammed in there. What happens when you put a yod before the third root letter in a verb? It means to cause to do, right? Sometimes it means elative, but to cause to do. So the hifil binyan. So To cause to come means to bring. The ta reminds us of ata, you. So tavi, you shall bring, right? So reshit b'chorei admatacha tavi, the choicest of the first fruits of your land. Tavi, you shall bring. Beit Adonai Elohecha. And look again, very interesting. No vowels on Yod He Vav He here. So we will read it as Adonai, but we understand that they had it memorized as this was the actual name of God, right? The actual name. So Beit from the word Bayit. Bayit means house. Beit means house of. Of course, you can always remember Bethlehem. Beit Lechem, house of bread. So the house of Adonai Elohecha, your Elohim. The Elohim, drop the mem. Elohe is God of Cha, the God of you, your God. Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo. This is kind of strange that this is here. So, lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo. Lo, not tevashel. So, this really feels more like boil. You shall not boil. Bishel is to boil. Although in modern Hebrew it has come to mean just like cook, right? But this can mean cook. But we have lots of words for cook. Right? In this one, if you want to be specific about boiling, then this is the word you use. Bishel, in biblical Hebrew. Bishel, right? To boil. The ta, you. So you shall not boil. Now the call from this bashal means to ripen, right? So that's, I heard that. Who was it? I think it was the unlearned guy. I think it was either the unlearned guy or the whatever ministries with the number. One of those guys, I don't know who it was trying to say that because this really is about ripening, So, no, only the call version. You can't just take You can't take one binyan, one verbal stem meaning of a root, and then say that also applies to the other one. It doesn't work that way. It's like they're different words, okay? So you can't do that. So this is not about ripening. This is about, especially in context, this is boiling. You shall not boil gedi. This is a kid, right? Like, that kind of kid, right? Not a human kid. That should be obvious that you shouldn't boil that one. A gedi. It almost sounds like a kid, like, you shall not boil a gedi b'chalev, in milk of imo. Aim is mother, im of o, of him, his mother. So you shall not boil a kid in the mother's milk. And I'm thinking maybe instead of verse 20, maybe I'll show you this in Aramaic. Brendan says, well, let's just put some wind in your sails. Yeah, we keep growing like we've been growing. By the way, praise Adonai that we keep growing. The devil, he sent that snake in my studio a couple months ago, and truly there was a snake in real life, and we'll survive. I really see his hand on the ministry. It's kind of amazing. Like, there's been some hiccups this last year, issues with some stuff, and it seems like every time we get through it, the ministry just explodes, right? It's really like, so I'm really grateful for that. Bli ayin hara, nobody without the evil eye, but please keep praying. We're growing at a rate of about 10% every 15 days or so. So another 10% just the YouTube channel, right? So very grateful for that. And this, of course, please also pray for our congregation, which has seeded this ministry. So this is an outgrowth from Simchat Hashem here in the Philippines. Congregation Simchat Hashem, the joy of the Lord, or the joy of the name. Yeah, Brenda, doesn't it sound weird? Yeah, Brenda says it sounds distasteful to boil a kid in its mother's milk. I agree. It's like you're taking the thing that's supposed to sustain it and you're cooking it in that. It's like perverted, right? I mean, like, who does this? For sure the Canaanites did this, but it just seems so bad. Chris says, should not ripen would mean to separate the kid from the mother's milk and feed it something. Yeah, I think that's the argument they make, right? But the word just doesn't mean this, so, yeah. And I think the guy tried to use this to justify mixing meat and milk, right? And he tried to, I think he tried to make it look like Chizkuni thought this, right? But he tried telling Chizkuni that. So anyway, I'm going to show you where we get the traditional Jewish idea that you can't cook, for example, a cheeseburger, right? Okay, so where this comes from. Okay, so I'm going to show you in my cool Aramaic Hebrew interlinear. Now, I'm against English interlinears, but I'm not against Hebrew and Aramaic interlinears. Or if you had a Greek Hebrew, that'd be really cool, I think, because you're not cheating. You're still not in your native language, right? Okay, so here we go. This is So this is really nice. I wish I could get all of these maybe someday, but this is the only one I have from the series, right? Because they're pretty expensive. This is Zichron Meir edition, and Meir means like the teacher, the illuminator, right? Okay, and this is his Onkelos, the definitive Aramaic interpretive translation of the Torah, elucidated and annotated. Ooh, the definitive. A little humble there, aren't we? Anyway, so let's see. Here we are. Okay. Can you see that? It's not focusing. There we go. Focus. Okay. So, what's so cool about this thing is if you're working on your... So, this is for Jews who are really good at Aramaic, right? Which is, most Orthodox Jews are better at Aramaic than they are at Hebrew. And so that's why you have the Aramaic in the Chumash. Usually you'll have a little bit of Aramaic on the side. You have the Hebrew, and then on the bottom, I think I showed you guys like a typical Chumash. Although this is, oi. Bookshelf did not like that. Although this is their Rabbiner Bible. This is a bit different, but I'll still show you. It's still in typical Chumash fashion, right? So this is my bar mitzvah gift from the synagogue where I had my bar mitzvah. They gave me a set of these. So you've got your Hebrew here. You can tell this is before computers, right? You got your Hebrew here, and then you have your Onkelos here. See, Onkelos, the Aramaic there. Because the yeshiva bokers are really good at Aramaic, and they're in that every day. And then there might be a word in Hebrew. Oh, what is that? So you just look over here. Okay, Miliel, word of Adonai. Okay, great, got it. So that'll help them to translate what they're trying to figure out over on the other side. Okay, so all right. So here is Onkelos in a cool interlinear, and this verse that we have, you're going to see where this tradition comes from, right? At least where it gets solidified. Why it's so ensconced in Judaism, not eating even cheese and milk together at all, right? I mean cheese and milk, cheese and dairy and meat. Okay, okay. So here's our verse. Oh no, wait. Okay, here. Okay. Lo tevashel gedi b'chaylev imo. Okay, but look at the Aramaic. Okay, la. Although I read this as lo because of how my friend the Syriac speaker taught me to pronounce Aramaic, but fine. We'll read it like Hebrew pronunciation. La. So that's not. Tevashel gedi. So this is boil the kid in the Hebrew, but look what the Aramaic says. Techelun. You shall not eat. And instead of boil the kid in the milk of its mother, it says, La techelun, you shall not eat basar, the meat. You shall not eat meat, not the meat. Meat, bachalav, in milk. See? So it's not a word, it's not an accurate translation. Usually Onkelos is pretty accurate, but in this case, he injected this interpretive. It's an interpretive translation there, not literally what the Torah is saying. So anyway, in case you ever wondered about that, now you know that's why. That's why that happens. Okay. Chris says it also seems to strain the Noahide prohibition on eating living flesh. That's an interesting point. Yeah. Let's see. Ink says, Baruch Hashem. Yes. Hallelujah. And praise Adonai. Yes, Brenda. Chris says, cooking the kid in the mother's milk was a specific pagan practice to worship a pagan deity, but I don't know which one. I think you're right. You say that and Chamosh comes to mind. I think it's Chamosh, but I'm not sure. Landis says, Rabbi, is a kid a goat or a lamb? I think it's either. Yeah, I think it's either. So oftentimes these species in Hebrew, we treat them almost like the same. Like, for example, tzon, a flock. So that could be of goats or lambs. Yeah, so, yeah. Not that they're the same species, but there's a lot of cross. So I think a kid is either one of those, yeah? Okay, let's see. Brenda says, do you observe this, Rav? I do not put this on anybody. You put me on the spot, Brenda. I just find it so incredulous, the idea that this is really what the Torah meant. The Peshat is so different than the interpretation. So I would not ever put this on anybody unless you're in the land of Israel. If you go to Israel, then do it for sure, right? Outside, it's really up to you. It's really up to you if you're going to do it outside the land. I know some people down below in the comments are going, what? Mishnah and blah, blah, blah. It's just, sometimes the Peshat, I'm just so incredulous at how this happened that it gets so expanded like that. Now I know our late Rebbe Avner, who was the chief rabbi of the organization where I got my first ordination, he would observe this, but he wouldn't do it for chicken, for example, right? He just thought it's too much to say that you can't eat chicken with dairy. The rationale for chicken is that it's an appearance of evil, right? So like if another Jew sees you eating a chicken sandwich with cheese on it, they might think that that's beef or something, So, but really, it's a rabbinical takana, yeah. So, Yvonne says, "Thanks, Rava, very welcome." Julie says, "In a way, it reminds me of a child sacrifice into the fire." Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But you know what, Brenda? I'm always considering it. My mind is always coming back to this very often. Always coming back to it. Like, should I be telling people to do this? A friend of mine, he says that he will, for example, if he wants a cheeseburger, what he'll do is he'll melt the cheese on the bread, and then he'll cook the meat. And then he just puts it on top, and he says, "Hey, there's no way that was, was mevushal, was boiled in, you know what I mean?" So, really, we really need to have a halakhic decision with the Beit Din, right? I would rather not enforce it on people unless it's a religious court deciding it, right? So, but anyway, with our movement, we're starting this movement, the Bnei Israel, so maybe I'd like to get some halakha like this pushed out already, because Yeshua says, "Wherever 2 or 3 are there gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them." Meaning, when you have a Beit Din, he is there authorizing the halakhic decisions that are being made by that Beit Din. So, yeah. So, the technical answer, the safe answer is, if any of you are already under any kind of Beit Din or any kind of direct spiritual authority, then that authority of 2 or 3 people can make the decision, right, on whether you're going to separate milk from meat or not. Yeah, so. Yeah. I'm almost embarrassed to answer it because it's so strong in Judaism, in kashrut, right? The idea of milk and meat, being separated. So, and it causes so much hardship sometimes for poor families too. You got to have 2 refrigerators, or at least 2 separate complete sections and stuff, 2 sets of dishes, And if you go to Israel and you're in a cafe and you want to order an appetizer that's got meat in it, they'll make you eat outside, right? Because people are drinking coffee, right, with hez. So with family members, usually what I'll do is I'll say, like, if we eat some meat, and we're going to have, say, ice cream for dessert or something, we wait 30 minutes. We wait 30 minutes, and then you eat the afterwards. So Julie asks, what makes the difference between being in the land to obey the law? For me, it's just in case I'm wrong, right? Like if I'm wrong in this ruling, then we don't want to be doing stuff that causes the land to spit us out, right? So whenever you're in the land of Israel, you should operate at a much higher level of observance than you do when you're at home, right? Because you're in such a holier place than your home, right? So does it hurt to be a little extra careful, right? Does it hurt to not have that cheeseburger, just have a normal burger? Right? It's really so hard to do. So that's why kind of my philosophy on a lot of these things is, when you're in the land of Israel, be extra careful. Even if you drive your car in Shabbat, usually don't do it in Israel, right? You just all that, make it treat it as holy on another level, right? That's why. Brendan says, "I'm sorry I put you through that on the spot. I do appreciate your answering." No problem. I could have just ignored your question. I don't mind the hard questions too. Devorah says, "But Avraham served milk and meat to the 3 visitors." Yeah, that's a great response. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, one could respond and say the Torah had not been given yet, right? I mean, the Israelis, when we came out of Egypt, many people were married to their aunties, right? So, but later the Torah says don't do that, right? So, there's a progression of the Torah. But I know there's another camp that says Avraham knew the whole Torah, right? So if you knew the whole Torah, then you've got a real good point there. I think that's a good argument against the idea of having forced separation of dairy and meat. Very good point with Avraham. Yeah, he served the curds and the beef to them, right? Okay, great. So we're at 53 minutes. I better go ahead and wrap it up. We'll leave off that last verse that I was going to do because I showed you the Aramaic and stuff. Hopefully that was enjoyable to everybody and edifying. Tomorrow we'll continue in Exodus. Please make sure to click like. If you're seeing this later, leave me a comment, questions. It's all great. And if you'd like to support us, please consider joining my channel. Or this week I'm going to be uploading my first lesson on my teaching on Revelation, where I go through all the Greek and I reconstruct biblical Hebrew from the Greek, and I talk about associations with other Jewish literature and stuff like that. So that is for those members who are supporting our ministry. So there'll be different ways to access that. If you have joined my channel, here on YouTube. You'll have the videos right here. And for those who have supported us by other means, by like PayPal or over on Patreon. On Patreon, it'll be there for the supporters, or I will just send you a link to an unlisted video. Don't worry. However, if you're supporting the ministry, you're going to get that. So my study on Revelation, okay. But be warned, I've only gone through chapter 2, right? But it's about 2 or 3 months worth of videos. So if enough people like it, it takes a lot of work, right? So if enough people like it, then that will inspire me to do it, to continue on, to push forward. All right. Oh yeah, let me put the PayPal up. Thank you, Landa, for reminding. Here's my PayPal.me. Hebrew literacy, but you got to do PayPal.me, right? Not .com. Otherwise, you won't get it. There it is in the chat. I'll pin it to the chat there. Really appreciate you guys supporting this. This is a full-time ministry, and so not just the stuff online, but what we have going on over here. So blessings to all of you.